Right, so today we are processing ways to be prepared and not scared. So I've only almost drowned about 2 times in my life. The second time I was surfing during El Nino. That was dumb.
That's a choice.
The first time I was in middle school at the Wet and Wild Water Park. My buddy Graham and I were at the deep end of the wave pool without a blow-up donut. When the waves started, it was fun for about 5 times, and then I saw Graham starting to panic. He struggled to keep his head above water, and he sputtered the word help. I looked at the lifeguard, and he had no idea. He was busy flirting. So I realized I could shoot down to the bottom, jump off the ground, throw Graham forward, and then breathe. And I did this over and over again. And, we both got to the shore. My knees buckled with exhaustion. Graham and I didn't drown. And Baywatch never noticed. So in emergency, you want the cavalry of agencies to come and do their jobs because they're there to save us, right? But for the short term, we actually need to rely on ourselves to survive long enough for the experts to notice. So that is our challenge for today. We need to build a plan that will create stability for us in a time of emergency. All right, so today we have Ron Sinicki, an active member of Yamhill County Civilian Emergency Response Team. Ron, that video suggests that we need to stockpile food. Is there any updates since the 80s?
A little bit, but not much actually. I'll be honest with you, a lot of my lessons learned going through civilian emergency response team training is similar to what my grandfather did in the Depression. The key is preparedness and kind of go through the scenario planning and think through, gosh, what could happen? Anything as small as, gosh, it's going to get icy out, I should have an ice scraper in my car eventually, to I should have an extra jacket in my car for when I go up into the mountains or something with weather changes and to be prepared to prevent discomfort.
It's mainly about discomfort?
It can be. I mean, it's all perspective, right? So we want to go off, we want to take care of ourselves and our loved ones. And the question is, how do we do that? So you need to go focus on the essentials, all right? But the start can be discomfort, but the question is, are you ready? And the Red Cross really does a great job of helping out and asking those questions. And they have a nice little quick quiz that allows you to go off and say, hey, are you ready to go off for whatever scenarios? And it starts off as easy as 5 questions. The first one is, what kind of emergencies or disasters that can occur in my community? Across the geographic different locations, different situations happen in different places. Pacific Northwest, we are in a subduction zone, so we have earthquakes. You don't have that in some other areas in the United States, for example. Between FEMA and Red Cross, they list over 30 different types of disasters that could occur. Anywhere from a flood to a drought to pandemic. The next one is with your core, your family, your family unit. Have I have a family disaster plan and have I practiced it? For example, from earthquake, the cell phone lines are going to get jammed locally. You are not going to be able to even call back and forth. The best thing that's going to happen is you're going to have some texting capability and it's going to be out of state. So for example, do all the family members, including the kids, know who to text the family member or the friend that is outside of the state that you're going to use as a reference point, right? So we have an ante for our house that's configured, so we all know it's the ante. And you got to practice it. We may have told them 5 times, but I'm sure right now, if you quiz my kids and they're older, they've probably forgotten which ante it is.
Yeah.
The next one is have a survival kit. This is number 3. Number 3 is have a kit. And the Red Cross starts off with a basic 15 items. And we can go through that in a little bit. But basically have a basic kit, and it should be with you. So you have 3 primary locations you're at. You're at work, you're at home, and you're in a car. So how you kind of manage that, for example, I manage my work one by having it in my car. So I kind of have that one. And so wherever I am at, it's in my car. It's kind of uncomfortable as far as the fact you're trying to pack some things in your car. Sometimes the kit needs to go out when you go and make a big run to someplace, but you got to manage that. You know, you go on a big trip, you have the kit with you. The 4th item is having somebody first aid trained. You want to have somebody that has in your household, somebody has first aid training, including CPR.
Okay.
And I recommend multiple. The preparation is always N+1. Whatever you need, add one more. And you go, and that's kind of how you build your kit to start with, especially your home kit, is you start with N+1, right? I'm gonna get some canned foods, I'm gonna get some tomato sauce, I'm gonna do N+1. And you just start slowly building it that way.
Okay.
It can be overwhelming initially, and you just gotta go slow. Just start a little bit at a time. I mean, you know, as you do bills, whatever periodicity, whatever you do, whatever, go off, and as you pay monthly, go off and actually add to your kit. Look at your kit, use your kit. Number 5, and the last one, is help my community prepare. So that's more of an advanced, as I'm getting situated and I'm okay, help others out.
No, that's
And this
kind
is,
of what we're doing today.
yeah. And this is all on the Red, I can't emphasize enough, this is all on redcross.org. You go
Yeah.
there and you just ask for emergency preparedness, and things are popping up all over.
Okay, well, we will put that on a link on Facebook and stuff. You notice that FEMA suggests that you should be self-sufficient for a certain amount of time. What is that?
The time varies. I actually was looking it up. We reference in our Yamhill County, we reference at least 3 days. And that's
Okay.
just an average. It's based upon logistics. You're seeing today, the biggest thing about the pandemic that we're experiencing right now is the fact you're seeing impacts to supply chains on the commercial side, let alone on the government side. And any kind of government relief, you've seen it with all of the flooding responses, it takes time. It takes several days, if not weeks, to get the government response to get to the people that need it the most.
Okay.
You'll have some immediate responses, and then it's going to phase in with more and more and more as far as resources that they come in. But you're going to have some level of self-sustaining that you're going to do. Right now, we're, as a civilian emergency response team member, we're responsible, and we coach in the community 3 days, at bare minimum 3 days. That's 3 days of everything you need, from medications to food and water. Water is 1 gallon per person per day.
Okay, okay. So what do you have in your household that allows you to survive for 3 days?
We have all those things. So we
Well,
have
tell me
medication.
what you have.
You want the specifics?
Well, I mean, you have your stuff. What do you have? What do you have?
So for example, one of the biggest ones that I have, because the water is the one that is hard to kind of manage. It's hard to keep it. It's hard to go off, keep it stored. You got to rotate it through. So I have a couple things. I have a bladder for the bathtub that allows you to go off and basically it fills up the entire bathtub and allows you to put water and contain the water in your bathtub into a nice container that you can use later.
Okay.
The second thing is life straws, and we put those in all of our kits in every vehicle. And that is a straw that's a filtration system on it that allows you to basically go to a puddle and basically start sucking on it, and it basically is clean water coming in. The third item is realize your hot water heater is palatable water. So that's the water that you can drink. It's just before it goes into and becomes hot water, it goes into your hot water tank. Hot water tanks are usually 30 gallons. So that's a great source of water. It's not going to, you're not going to have hot water, goes back to that convenience thing, but you'll have water.
Okay. Okay. So COVID-19 affects our economy, our health, our comfort items. Are you preparing for any other disasters in your emergency kits?
It becomes similar. If you start looking at some of the disasters and do some of the scenario planning, right? We have a big frost and I can't get to the grocery store. right? We've had that before. We've had like a week's worth of ice where it's really not feasible to actually go to the grocery store and try to commute around. So you've had to live off of what we have in the house for a week. We've had big storms. We have a potential earthquake that for the Pacific Northwest is potentially promising to be quite impacted, and it's going to have a significant recovery time. Right. And I'll be honest with you, that's the one that really, I kind of knew about this stuff. Like I said, it's my grandfather, from the Depression raising me and helping, and also my Army duty. It really, when Boeing sat me down and they sat down the entire organization, so that's over 150,000 people in the Seattle area, and made us watch an earthquake preparedness video. That's 1 hour times 150,000 people, over 150,000 people was the investment they made. And all it was is, hey, you need to take care of yourself. And that really kind of made me pause and go, gosh, this is really serious. They're not kidding around.
These kits are not only preparing for something that we're dealing with right now, but it's also something that the big earthquake. Is there anything else that you notice in the Pacific Northwest that we need to kind of deal with or look for?
There's over, like I said, there's over 30.
Yeah.
There's over 30. I mean, if you want me, so I actually have the link right here. I'm pulling it up.
Okay.
Give me a couple of seconds.
You don't need to read them all. I was just wondering if you had any that are top of mind that you're like, you really
and the earthquake is the biggest one we're going to see. I mean, like I said, being able to go off and whether it be weather, some kind of natural disaster that prevents you from going and getting resupplied as far as your home. And then the earthquake. The earthquake is going to be, like I said, a very big impact for the Pacific Northwest. And there's a lot of efforts right now to go off and make sure we're getting prepared. There's a lot of efforts to improve our infrastructure in the Pacific Northwest. And it's an ongoing battle as far as trying to manage funds and government resources to go off and do that. So when it hits, we'll see.
Okay,
but that's one of the big ones.
Like putting on an oxygen mask when you're on an airplane before you assist others, we can be, if we are in control first, we can then help our community. What are things that you have done right now that allows you to feel more in control during this time?
So the quiz, having a preparedness kit was helpful. I've been trying to buy N+1 for quite a bit. Trying to have some food stores readily available. So we do have that buffer of what are you consuming and what we need to consume. I mean, you got to make sure you have a very honest discussion. It's hard with little kids of what is a need versus a want, right? They may not have your favorite, pick your consumable, whatever it is, but they have something, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now we're going to play a game that I call, let's see, what do I call it? I call it, What's in the Bag? So there's a bag of emergency preparedness kit, and then I have that list from the Red Cross that is in it. So are there items that are in your bag, Ron, that are not in, or that are not in this bag? I can see maybe water, a blanket. Do you see that at all? It might be difficult with your.
I see it. I see it perfectly. So you keep adding to it, right? You keep adding little extra things, little convenience things. A compass is one thing that I'm comfortable with using, and there's other family members that a compass is helpful to kind of keep them on reference. Not everyone has had land navigation training, so that's something kind of helpful to have. You talk about a map in the area for the Red Cross. Having things that are, it does mention the hand cranking. Having a hand crank, either flashlight or radio, is helpful. The big ones that I have are probably my two favorite things to add, and I add those and I offer those up to people as gifts. One is the Boy Scout Handbook, because it's a basic survival book. It is visual. It's very, very picture orientated. And one of the things is, in a stress situation, you want to calm down. The last thing you want to do is try to go off and execute whatever, either a mental task or a physical task, when you're being stressed.
Okay.
If you sit down and read something, just sit and go off and read a paragraph, it will start to calm you down. So it's a really handy book because it's very easy. You can look at pretty pictures that may calm you down. If you're too excited to read, you got plenty of things to read, and it's a great overall comprehensive basic manual from first aid to survival to whatnot. The second thing is an easy knife sharpener. And it does reference a kind of tool. I do always have a fixed blade knife, try to go off and try to do a specific carbon steel because it's easier to sharpen. If you ever try to sharpen a cheap stainless steel, it takes forever. It holds the edge, but it takes a while. And sometimes you can get some of your worst cuts from a unsharpened knife. In fact, some of the worst stabs I've ever had or cuts in the kitchen is from a knife that, you know, is just cheap, and then you try to sharpen it and it doesn't really retain a good edge. And it's important to have a nice, good, effective tool.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Anything else?
I'd say the third one, and I don't see it on the list, and that's a life straw. I've had that at least two of those.
Gotcha. There was an interesting thing in the list that didn't make the graphic bag. Was copies of personal documents like your passport, your birth certificate, you know, those kinds of things.
Insurance policies.
Yeah, definitely. So what are, Ron, to you, in the bag during COVID-19, do you think is the most important thing during this disaster?
Interesting question. It's not in here, and it's actually part of the next phase of preparation, and that is mental preparation. So one of the biggest challenges we have, in addition to our commercial supply chain of I can't find my favorite product, or gosh, I need to go to 5 stores to find toilet paper, is having information. And it's one of the things we're challenged with, and we have been for several years, as far as with all of the information that is out there, having effective and clear communication, especially of what is this, right? We should be looking towards our medical community, specifically doctors that are study viruses or study infections. Those are the people who are guiding us. Yeah. The lessons learned from SARS told the whole story. The guy actually wrote a book and actually defined goes, this is what's going to happen. And it's literally playing out word for word on what he saw with SARS. Because it's more contagious, this is the pandemic that he predicted. If this scenario happened, this is how it's going to play out. And it's happening. And that helps mentally prepare. So you realize this is not a comfortable situation. Things are changing around me, but I knew it was going to happen. And that is helpful to have.
What channels are you looking at right now to kind of get that information?
The two you absolutely got to be looking at is the CDC and the World Health Organization. Those are 2 places to go, right? Everything else, regretfully, you got to take it with a grain of salt. And you got to really be vetting where you're getting your information from. It's got to be coming from a medical professional, and specifically, you got to be watching the ones that are, you know, experts in viruses and infection.
That's good.
I think all of the medical doctors are being very careful in referencing and being consistent with how they're referencing information. Everything I've seen from the medical community has been very consistent and very clear.
Okay. So this emergency kit can get expensive, you know, with the N+1s. Can you share your little budget tip on getting your emergency kit?
There's twofold. There's two hints, and one is as you do a budget, you do things monthly, and so you go off and you build your kit monthly, right? You go off and you buy a little something. For Amazon, you go off and you put in your cart and then you hold it for later. And so I've got a laundry list of those things and stuff that, okay, gosh, I can afford that 20. For example, that bladder for the bathtub is $30. So I'd only have 2. I have 1 today. Later on, I'll go buy a second one, but I'll get it eventually. With the medical training, we have tourniquet training. associated with CERT, I don't carry a tourniquet with me, but it's something that's highly desirable, something that in a natural disaster could potentially be used, but those cost some money. Wraps, medical wraps. They actually reference probably the least expensive and they work effectively is using horse wraps. The ones that they use to go off and wrap their feet works great. Go off and make an impromptu cast for yourself. These things add up, but if you just put a little bit aside, you can do that. Another thing you can be quite effective is go to the dollar store and just go through there, and literally for about $30, you can go off and have a basic kit set up immediately. Matter of fact, a lot of the little things that I have in kits are coming from a dollar store. My favorite one is actually their Crazy Glue. Crazy Glue, because they're very small, they're single applications, and of course, I don't know if people know, but the history of Crazy Glue is it actually was developed to go off and adhere skin. It does a great job at that. You got to be careful in your projects. It's great for suturing, right? So you go off and in a triage situation, it hurts to get inside, but you can go off and you can do a quick suture with Crazy Glue, and it's actually designed with the $1. They're literally the size of a single use. So you have like 5 uses per dollar. It's kind of cool. So I have a couple of those in every medical kit.
That's huge. Thank you for that, because I can see that being something that's people are just like, I can't do it right now. But having that sort of option is really huge. What items are okay? So you said that you learned a lot from your grandfather, who was during World War II. Did he barter? Like, the money situation can like maybe be difficult to deal with. Like, do we need to think about bartering, and what items were good to barter with in World War II?
Yeah. Specifically for my grandfather, it was the Depression he went through. He actually was part of the civilian corps. If you're not familiar with that, is back in the 30s, people would go off and they basically worked for room and board for the government. Basically, they built roads, they built parks and whatnot. And he's got some fun stories with that, where they would barter. They bartered labor to go off and pay for stuff.
Okay.
My father actually was through a refugee camp through World War II. So he knows about the bartering system and basically convenience items. So liquor is something that, matter of fact, we was having a fun joke about, hey, somebody is running out of their favorite liquor. It's like, well, I've got that, and maybe I'll trade you a dinner for, a bottle of liquor or whatnot. So convenience items are things that are readily desirable, and they're not bad to have on hand. It's hard to go off and know what to carry. My recommendation is focus on the essentials, and the essentials will always be desirable. Right now, today, toilet paper is tradable.
What did you do in this toilet paper crisis?
So I've had it, and I've set it up or I had purchased it, and it was in the garage. And as soon as we got our first day at home, so that I have a home bidet. It's a simple little attachment for about $15, $20 off of Amazon that attaches to your toilet. So we went off and reinstalled a bidet.
Well,
so that was my impetus, was the working at home and not being able to find toilet paper.
All right. Well, there's about 10 minutes left in this call. Is there any questions from the gallery that are out there that are interested in trying to everybody to figure out? Actually,
Hi. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
Okay, I asked this on the chat, but I was wondering, Ron, do specific people in your house have specific roles in case of an emergency? So, like, you are in charge of X, someone else is in charge of this, and if so, how did you go about assigning those roles?
I wish we were that organized. My family is more like herding cats. God love them. So we don't. We have talked through it, the scenario. I'll be honest with you, I've got 2 older kids. I've got a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old, so they kind of are aware of the plan. But obviously, it's my spouse that I work with, my wife, as far as repartner, as far as, specifically the medical training. We both have medical basic first aid training. She has a little bit more than I do. And just knowing the plan and talking and dialoguing that, so that way we have redundancy as far as the roles. My job is preparation and be able to go off and do it. Mom's job is, rally the troops and, okay, this is the plan. She knows the plan, and she'll get them to follow it. That's how we did it.
Nice. Is there anything else that that you feel like you want to put out there for this community?
It can be very, very overwhelming to get going. I know I did. I actually, one of the reasons why I joined a civilian emergency response team was to go off and help myself being accountable of building a kit. Especially as the primary person who prepares kits, I have one in every vehicle. So I've got one in, both kids, my wife's. I got a second vehicle. So I've got like 6 kits bouncing around, and mine are usually the worst ones. My wife's is usually the best kit. She has I want to make sure she's got what she needs and whatnot. And it can be very overwhelming, and it's just a little bit each day. I think, just as you budget your money monthly, put a little bit into the preparedness, touching the plan, or building the kit. Just keep working at it, just one day at a time.
Okay. There's a question from the chat. Where did you get your medical/CPR training? And is there a place that you recommend?
I got the most of it through the Red Cross. I did an 8-hour training, and I thought the way and how they instructed it, I've had military training, and we had very bare basic training in the military. One of the few tidbits I've gotten out of that, but the Red Cross was the best training I've gotten. And it's readily available everywhere. And if you have to pay for it, it is worth every dollar. They really broke it down and made it very simple. That I think I took that class over 25 years ago, and I still retain almost all of it because it's just so simply put together. It did an exceptional job of just breaking down a medical response and triage.
Nice. As a clarification, your wife put in the chat that the blanket in the emergency kit is actually a space blanket. So it's very thin and very warm. It reflects that heat.
Hers is.
Anything else?
I think that's it. I think, reach out, and I think have an accountability partner. If you want to partner with a friend and say, hey, I want to do, I don't have a kit, you don't have a kit, let's work on it together and stuff, and, chip away at it. Whether it be your spouse or whether it be your friend or whatnot, we call those accountability managers, to be able to kind of partner with like that, I think would help you move forward. I can't emphasize enough, once you go off and develop your kit, you can continue on the preparation. There's a lot of other facets and stuff, as your family dynamics grow, you may have little ones come into your family unit that you have to go off and are you trained to do infant CPR, which is different than adults? Do you have medications that evolves over time? You need to be able to have those readily on hand. People with disabilities, either, yourself or maybe, your next door neighbor. You want to take care of them. Those are the key things to keep on developing. And I can't encourage enough, as you get more and more comfortable, to reach out to the community and see what you can do there. Like I said, the Red Cross or the Civilian Emergency Response Team, which is every county has one, and it's through their county organization and structure. You go off and just look up FEMA, or just look up ready.gov is where FEMA puts all of it, and that's where the search stuff is at, and you can literally find your local emergency response team.
Thank you so much, Ron Sinicki. We are now able to consider how to put on our face mask before we go out and try to help others. So thank you so much for giving us that information. And we will be posting these links for everybody to look at and to kind of gather and figure out what their kit looks like. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.